Good evening and a very warm welcome to everybody. Thank you for joining us this evening. I don't know about you, but I was bobbing along to that music. I was really quite getting into that. First time we've used our cheesy countdown and I really liked it. So today is a very special event to celebrate the publication day of my latest release, Spring Tides at the Starfish Cafe, which came out on Tuesday, which is the second book in the Starfish Cafe series after, here's what I prepared earlier, Snowflakes over the Starfish Cafe. We have two very special guests from the RNLI. Now, if you're calling from or joining us from overseas and you're not so familiar with the RNLI, stands for the Royal National Lifeboat Institution, and it is something that is a very, very strong theme in my Starfish Cafe series, but I won't explain quite how because that will give spoilers for anybody who hasn't read it. Now, our two guests, Amy and Lucy, who will properly introduce themselves in a moment, are based at Scarborough Lifeboat Station, and anybody who is familiar with my Whitspur Bay books, 9 of which I have written in addition to the series, they are set in a fictional version of Scarborough, which is a bit of a mix of Scarborough, Whitby and Robin Hood's Bay. And so it's an absolute delight to have members of the crew from the fictional lifeboat station where part of this book is set. Now, viewers are very much invited to ask questions while we're live, and we'll get through as many as we can. But as far as the questions to Lucy and Amy go, we're really looking for just anything that's kind of very basic curiosity stuff that you'd like to know about the day-to-day things like wearing the kit and how heavy it is and how warm it is, different things like that. What we're not going to go into is anything on politics. So if you do ask any questions like that, I'm afraid we will skip over those. And we can't talk about any details about specific rescues, as obviously they are people's lives, and we don't have the permission of those people involved to talk about that. But there's loads of other things that we've got lined up that we will chat to you about. And there's also a link to the RNLI in the comments if you do want to make a donation to the organisation for the amazing work that they do. So just before I hand over to Amy and Lucy, welcome along to all those who've joined us so far. So Lindsay, Colette, Mary Grant, who's another Boldwood author, Eliza, who's another author, and a good friend of mine, Jackie, Grace, and Nina. Thank you for coming along and joining us this evening. So let's hand over to our guests. Could you introduce yourselves, telling us your name, what your role is in the RNLI, when you joined and what prompted you to join? And let's start with Amy, please.
Yeah, so my name's Amy. My role in the RNLI is boat crew. So that is on our inshore lifeboat and our all-weather lifeboat. And we both joined at the same time. So that was December 2020. So the reason I joined the RNLI, I've had a career change, I had a bit more free time. I've lived in the Scarborough area for just over a decade, so I was kind of wanting to give something back to the community, and I've always kind of enjoyed doing things kind of in water, like scuba diving, and so I was really eager to kind of get involved, and all the training's fantastic.
I'm Lucy, and I joined at the same time as Amy. I'm also a boat crew on both the inshore and all-weather lifeboat, and I moved back into the area. I'd been away for a couple of years, so I wanted to join when I was a bit younger, but because I was moving away, I didn't really get the chance. And like Amy, I do a lot in the water, so I surf, paddleboard, kayak, and swim, and I wanted to be able to actually give something back and make a positive difference in an area that I thought I really enjoyed. So why not try and help out there? Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you for those great introductions. Now, most volunteers for the RNLI also have a day job because obviously the amazing work that you do, you're not paid for. It is done as voluntary. There are some paid positions in the organisation, but most crew are volunteers. So can you just briefly tell us about your day job and how being crew fits around that? Because certainly that was one thing that I was interested in. And obviously you need something to bring some income in, but to be available for rescues. So start with Lucy.
So I work in law during the day. So the rest of my free time on an evening and a weekend, I'm available to attend for shouts and during the day as well. I'm also available to dip out of work occasionally, depending on what it is. So there's a lot of time that I can give to it. But like you say, we are all volunteers, and we all have completely like full careers as well as it on the side.
Yeah, so I'm a signaller for the railway, so I work for Network Rail. I work 12-hour shifts, so that's either day shifts or night shifts. So obviously, when I'm at work, I can't come away. So we have RNLI providers with an app that we can use on our phones, and then you kind of make yourself available or unavailable, and you work it around your life and your job basically. And it just lets the people who are sorting out crew numbers and keeping tabs on whether who's available. It just helps them out to kind of plan. So yeah, it's really useful.
It's great. So it puts it by category of ALB crew, ILB crew, mechanics, navigators, coxswains, helms, and will flag up when there's if the number like drops below half, for example. So they'll know to make sure that there are people available to be on call.
Helps us keep organised.
Yeah, definitely. And if you're popping out of town, you can set it to show that you're unavailable and things like that. And it is a really good tool.
Yeah.
No, it was really. I met with Amy and Lucy and another member of the team, Eve, a few weeks ago, and I got to see the little app and see how it works. And it was one thing that always made me curious, in that would you just have to drop your job and be paged and get out of there? So it was interesting to see kind of how the rota system all worked. I'm just going to pause a little comment. We've got a lovely comment. Jackie Palmer says, Amy's our granddaughter and we are very proud. Completely so. I think, anybody, I was on a Facebook party day to celebrate the launch on Tuesday, and we were talking about the work of the RNLI on there, and several people coming on saying that they have an uncle that works there, or the next door neighbour has, and it's just such an amazing thing that you all do. I'm just in awe of people giving their time to sort of help others in difficulty. It's a dangerous job. So let's move on to a little bit more about the role. Now, before writing Snowflakes Over the Starfish Cafe, my first book, which I originally started writing heading for about 5 years ago now, I came down to the station to interview a male crew member to get inspiration for my lead male, Jake. So I met with Matt, whose nickname is Mouse, and he was absolutely invaluable in telling me all about his day job and how things fit around that. And I found him so useful as a kind of muse for my character that I even named my character Jake Mouse after him, but for a different reason. And I even gave him the same job that Mouse had, which was at the time, Mouse was a charge nurse on A&E, I think it was. And so I just thought, well, I know that definitely fits with the shift work around that job. But as we've moved through the series, my main female character, Holly, has started training with the RNLI. So I was particularly interested to come along and meet some female crew members and find out how it differed. Did it differ? What was it like being a female on crew? And I certainly can see there is a question that's come up that links to this. Lindsay's asked, what is the hardest part of being a female in the RNLI? So that kind of really does link into what we're going to talk about. So I'll kind of ask our overall question. Now, I know from our discussion a few weeks ago that you felt you've been treated as absolute equals throughout, and that the crew have been incredibly supportive, and really, although there are some practicalities about being a woman on crew, you've never felt that you were different to any of the other male members. So if you could tell us a little bit about your experiences of being a woman on RNLI crew, any reservations that you might have had, any physical practicalities of being a woman versus being a man on crew, and a little bit about the support and encouragement you've had. So to start with Amy, but Lucy, I know you'll probably bounce off each other and chip in bits.
Yeah, I suppose to start with, because especially when you very first start, you don't know anyone in there, and there are a lot more men than women. I work in quite a male-dominated industry anyway, so I'm kind of used to it. But there is that initial yeah. And then we joined at the same time, and we were at the time the only females on the boat crew. I think the main thing for me was maybe just the physical side of it. So, for example, on the inshore boat, when we land the boat, we have to kind of jump out and then hold the kind of front of the boat to sea to make sure it doesn't kind of spin around, you don't lose control of it, and then kind of jump back in. And that I find physically quite difficult because it's it's basically like doing a weighted chin up because you've got all your gear on.
Yeah.
It's soaking wet, and then you've got to kind of pull your whole body into the boat. So that I find, you know, it's just a physical thing and a kind of upper body strength thing. But
neither of us are particularly, you know, we're not Big Ben. We've not got the height. So getting in and out of the boat, getting back into the boat at first was something that I did struggle with. You've got to be really quick. There's a brief second where the helm will shout in and you have to get in within that second. Otherwise, the boat has to go because the conditions that you're in mean that they have to go straight away. They've picked that safe moment to go. And so they're going to go and you're going to have to get into the game. You've got to get in. Yeah. And it can be challenging, like from a strength aspect. Like I'd love to say I've got massive muscles and that I'm super strong. I'm simply not. But yeah, you find ways to adapt methods and techniques to doing it. So getting into the boat from being completely like where you're completely floating in the water. Obviously your kit's all wet by this point, and as soon as you start to pull yourself out of the water, you sort of get dragged back down.
So it's definitely a challenge. But the crew at Scarborough, like they've all been absolutely fantastic. 100%. Like there's no like, oh, you're a girl, so we'll let you off that. It's like
you
no,
will
you
do
keep doing
this.
it until you do it, which is good. Like it's what you want. You don't want to be treated like
you don't want to be treated differently or let off things. You know, the crew are held to the same standard, and that's something that we're proud of. That, you know, just because we didn't get something the first time doesn't mean we're not going to get it. And it's when we do the emergency survival course down in Poole, getting into the life raft was something that I initially struggled with. You've got your massive bladders on your life jacket that are inflated, you're tipped back. As soon as you put your foot on a ladder, it dips under. And my arms, I've got little T-Rex arms and I couldn't quite reach the rung on the inside. But the every crew member that we've ever, you know.
And shout out to the instructors down at Poole as well. The RNLI, obviously using all the donations we get from the members of the public, they use that to train us. And they have a fantastic training facility down in Poole. Yeah. And the couple of the ladies that we were talking to down there, you know, they're used to these kind of issues, and they help us kind of find different techniques to do things just that don't require as much of a body strength. Shout out to all the female instructors down at Poole.
So and even the guys, especially at our station, when there's something that we don't quite get, or for me especially when I was struggling to get into the boat, they were like, try it this way, it works for me. You know, you don't have to be 6 foot and built. You can find ways to get around it. But it's definitely been something that just because we haven't got it the first time, we've persevered.
You just carry on, gritty teeth and carry on.
Very stubborn people.
I remembered when you were talking to me, you were saying that even things like doing rope work, having smaller hands. You found a challenge. And how did you get around that? Again, you were saying that the crew were really helping you with tips.
Just techniques again. And some of the guys will like hold a massive reel of rope up their arm because they've got big hands and big arms. Well, we will like maybe wrap it around a bollard or just different ways of doing things. For little hands.
And the coxswain's been great. He's like, instead try coiling it like this, try doing it like that. Everyone, you know, it's not like they go, all right, well,
you can't do it then.
It's never like that. It's like, try it this way, this will work. There's always another way, and they absolutely do look out for you. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant to hear. Now, we were hoping originally to host this down at Scarborough Lifeboat Station and give everybody a little bit of a tour, but the Wi-Fi is a bit patchy down there, and we tested it on Tuesday, and it kind of wasn't going to work. So Amy very kindly modelled for us on a series of videos, and so you should be able to hear her talking through on the video itself. And so we've got 3. First of all, Amy's going to show us kind of the main kit that they wear, then the life jackets, and then give us a bit of a tour of the kit room. But just before we go into that, you're both sporting lovely yellow jackets. Do you just want to explain what it is that you're wearing now and when you might normally wear that?
So this is from the ALB gear. So that's all weather lifeboat, the big Shannon class we have down at Scarborough. And this is the kind of first layer. We have
so you've got your salopettes first, and so you put your unders on and then this jacket would go on
at the top.
and then you've got your foul weather coat as well, which has got the rain hood, which is it's a different material.
Yeah.
It's a Gore-Tex. Yeah, it's not as softly lined. So the idea is that you would go out with all of the kit on, and then if the weather was not as bad as you anticipated, you could then take it off and just wear this one.
Yeah, so it's better to say more than less.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to get caught out.
Thank you. Well, let's dip into the video, and then when we've done that, we'll come back to some more of the comments. So thank you very much.
Okay, so I'm just getting into the ARB kit. So this is the kit we wear for our all-weather lifeboat. So this is a pair of salopettes. They're Gore-Tex and they're weatherproof. So this is the kind of first layer we wear over our clothes. They go up like that. And then we've got steel toe cap wellies. They do it nice and tight to keep the water and the weather out. Once we've done them up, we want the next layer of our protective clothing. Again, this is a Helly Hansen weatherproof jacket. So now, depending on how bad the weather is, we do have another layer as well. So we have these big storm-proof jackets. So as you can see, we've got a lot of weatherproofing. We need it. A bit quicker than this if we're on a shout. So as you can see, that's all the protective layer of clothing, and then we run over. Okay, so I'm going to show you the life jackets now. So these are our ARB life jackets. So these are for the all-weather lifeboat. So it has no inherent buoyancy. We've got 290 newtons of inflation. In this little pouch we have our handheld flares. So we've got the red end, and that is for night time, and we've got the brown end that gives off orange smoke, so that's for use in the day. We have a yacht harness here, so this is useful for if the sea state is quite rough and we're wanting to attach ourselves to the boat. Kind of makes it safer for us to work on the deck, and they've got all kinds of useful uses. Those. This is a PLV. So in worst case scenario, if we end up in the water, this is a personal locator beacon, so we can lie on our back, stick the aerial up, and it sends off a message to the Coast Guard, which basically tells them where we are. So very, very important. And in this pocket we have, these are check cards. So this is used for our casualty care. So the casualty care person that's treating anyone that might need it, these are cards to kind of help them out remembering what and where. And these have an automatic inflation as well, so they also have the manual tag here, but if you do fall in the water in one of these, they will automatically inflate, which is a bit different to the other type of life jacket. So I'll get one of those out to show you the difference. So these are for the ILB, so this is the inshore lifeboat life jacket. You can instantly see they look different, so they've got this fat bit at the back, and that is inherent buoyancy, which means if you fall in the water with it, you're going to float whether it's inflated or not. They're very, very similar apart from that, so you've got the flare, the PLV is the same, you've got the yacht harness again, you've got your check cards. So the main difference with this is they don't automatically inflate if you fall in the water, because we do find when we're on the inshore lifeboat you get wet all the time anyway, so you'd be no good in one of them because you'd just inflate straight away. So with these they do have the manual tag that you have to pull to inflate, so that's just there, and that's the main difference between them. They're a little bit heavier to wear, with all these are nice and light. This is our crew changing room. So each individual crew member, that is the ARB crew, the IRB crew and the shore crew, they all have their own lockers. So the big boss man of the station has number 1 locker, and if you're here long enough you could hope to work your way around to this kind of side of the changing room. So yeah, we've got ARB kit, IRB kit, we've got the gecko helmets ready to go, we've got our own little personal boxes up there as well of whatever we might need, like towels and things like that. This is where we do our SMEAC briefing, so we get called here for an emergency shout. The helm or the coxswain will stand here and give a briefing of what the situation is, what to expect, what he expects of all his crew members. And we've got other things here for us to grab as well. So these are our portable radios, we've got different types of torches here, we've got oxygen cylinder down here which we need to grab as well. Blankets, stretchers, kind of all sorts of things in this corner. We've got bits and bobs to keep the suits well maintained as well. So we've got the wax that I mentioned earlier for the zip and the towel for the seams. This is where we keep all our life jackets, so the ARB ones kind of over there, IRB here, and these are for the tractor drivers. As you can see, there's a lot of volunteers needed to keep our lifeboat station going. We've got plenty of lockers in here, and they're very important washing machine down here as well. We've got showers and toilets here for us to use.
Brilliant. So thank you so much, Amy, for doing those videos for us, and particularly as I think you had about a 5-minute warning to much appreciated. It's fascinating the amount of kit, but the temperatures sometimes you will be going out in, and the risk of being in the water and everything like that, just absolutely need it, invaluable, isn't it? And I know the kit recently changed, didn't it? The Helly Hansen contract and the design changed fairly recently, so all looks good, extremely safe for you. And there are some lovely comments coming through here about the great work of the RNLI. So Sarah Bennett says, the RNLI do an amazing job. Thanks to Amy, Lucy and all the other brilliant volunteers. And just below that, Lindsay Besant says, having been rescued, the RNLI does an amazing job, so has actually firsthand therefore experienced how important it is. And she adds, I don't know how you all do it, having so much work, but I'm so glad you do. Mary Graham says, I think it's brilliant that you're working for the RNLI. I have to admit, I imagined men doing it. We need to see a lot of you. So, and Emma Brennan says, living beside the sea, I just want to say the RNLI do an amazing job that should be recognised so much more. Well done, ladies. Amanda says, very proud of both girls. Love from Lucy's mum. Say, oh, you've got Sarah says, I wouldn't be able to move in all that kit. Yes,
mobility is not easy.
Is it difficult to move when you are fully kitted out at times? I'd imagine it's very flexible, but there's a lot of kit.
Yeah, so especially if you're in your ILB kit, like you saw Amy in with the dry suit and the life jacket, as soon as it gets wet, especially with that inherent buoyancy, it does become quite heavy. So obviously when you're getting yourself back into the boat, that's another extra couple of kilograms on you. Yeah, you wouldn't be doing handstands and cartwheels in that stuff.
Yeah. Goodness. And Sarah Kingsmill says, well done, girls. It takes me 10 minutes just to put my socks on. I'd be there for a week trying to get into that lot. You do an amazing job. And Lindsay's added, from her rescue, blankets, etc. are very welcome when rescued. Because I can imagine, so many would, one of the first things you experience, of course, is cold water shock, isn't it? When somebody falls in. And even round our coast in the height of summer, sea's not warm. It's
it's not.
All around where we are. We're not talking Spain or anywhere like that. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. Now the team is much bigger than we think. I don't know how many of the viewers who've joined us watch the amazing or have seen the amazing BBC documentary Saving Lives at Sea, which usually features maybe about 4 or 5 different crews each week and a particular rescue that they've gone on, and it's fantastic. It's been running for lots of seasons. But the one thing that I hadn't appreciated is from watching that, the focus is usually on the crew and the actual rescue. And I guess, that's what makes the interesting TV, because people are curious about the rescues and the awful situations people might find themselves in, often unexpectedly. But when I was invited to Scarborough Lifeboat Station last September to observe a training session and to see both the all-weather lifeboat, the ALB, and the inshore lifeboat, the ILB, launch, which is a massive honour, I was fascinated at discovering how many more people are involved in the process than those who were actually on the boat. So other than the crew, can you tell us a little bit more about the amazing team that are needed to facilitate a successful, safe launch and rescue? Whoever wants to answer.
I mean, when you say, like, when we say crew, I know, you might be thinking about boat crew, but we think about shore crew as well. So we have an entire shore crew team and a boat crew as well.
Yeah, so it starts with the DLAs and the LAs, so the deputy launch authorities and the launch authorities. So they're the ones that get the call originally and make the call as to who's going and what's going on, basically. So they're the ones that will agree for the page to be sent out to us. So it starts with them, and then you've got boat crew coming through the door, shore crew coming through the door. And in shore crew, we've got the drivers as well for both the SLARs and the tool track, and the head launchers. You can't launch the boat without a head launch. They're absolutely vital. Shore crew play a huge part in it. So it's
without the shore crew, there's no boat.
Well, the boats wouldn't go.
Launch. Yeah. And
so
like for the ALB example, like especially in summer when it's busy, so we have to be really careful. Obviously, the public are safe while the boat's being launched. You've got the driver for the SLARs. You've got all the shore crew that have, you can have like seven, 8 shore crew out there on top of the boat crew as well. So there's a lot of people needed just for one launch and recovery.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you're coming through the door, the shore crew are already on it. They're already sometimes they'll help us prep the boat. They'll prep the tool track or the SLARs, and then the boat crew, whoever isn't going, will prep the boat and help you get ready, which is a great help. Everyone mucks in. It's brilliant.
And I know that when the boats come back in, then is it the shore crew who need to hose them down, because obviously the salt water would damage them?
It is. And if there's any boat crew kicking around that pop back down for it, but shore crew are brilliant.
Everyone chips in.
Absolutely,
really. Yeah. And you think about like how big the SLARs is, for example, for the ALB for launching that, like every component of that has to get washed down after it's been used. So the recovery can take quite a while.
If you've ever seen an ALB be recovered, getting it onto the SLARs itself, that takes time, and every single person on the shore and also on the boat has a role to play for that, to getting the straps on and just making sure everything's safe and that it's all running like clockwork. And then when it gets recovered back towards the boathouse, it's the washing of it, cleaning it, hosing it down, checking the components are still working, defects, damages.
Once the public see the boat disappear, there's probably another couple of hours of work that goes on after
a lot of time.
And the tractors are fascinating as well, and you need to be qualified, don't you, as part of what you do to drive the different ones. So obviously it's a huge beast that does the ALB. Fascinating to see it.
They've so for each individual thing you'll have a plan. So for ALB crew you'll have a plan for that, ILB crew plan for that, drivers and head launch, that's another separate plan. Helms have a separate plan, coxswains, mechanics, navigators. For each different role there's a separate plan to go with it. So the drivers have to do their own and all their units with it. Shore crew
all
got
the
to do all
assessments and everything as well. So everyone's like really highly trained to do that.
The standard is high.
Very high.
Everyone's held to the same standard, and it's high.
Because I know you go through a huge amount of training, don't you, to get to the point where you are qualified, and am I right to think you retest that every so often?
So it's I believe about 2 years on each. unit?
They vary depending on which unit it is, but yeah, there's like constant refreshing basically. So we have training weekly, so that can be anything from a couple of hours to 4 or 5 hours, can't it? And that's just the and that's just the practical training we do, or theory kind of training in our own time as well around that.
Yeah, so for the ILB, there are, I believe, 48 assessments that you have to do, and we have a traffic light system. So you'll go amber and then green. So you'll do an assessment for an amber light, and then a assessor trainer will green light you. So you end up doing near 100 assessments for one boat. So it's hefty, but it's in depth.
World class, I would suggest, from kind of really amazing. When I came in along to the training session in September last year, it doesn't matter what the weather is, you will still get on with your training, because in all weathers that you get involved in calls. And it was a lovely day when I turned up, and then it absolutely turned to torrential rain, and you could almost not see it. And the drill that evening was capsize training, so you were at the edge of the sea, tipping yourselves out of the boat and back into it, bucketing it down. But I guess you probably couldn't get much wetter than you already were at that point. In the rain. Amazing to watch. So if anybody does live near the coast and you do see your lifeboat crew out on a drill, it is fascinating to watch. But it's also interesting what you're saying about the shore crew having to keep the public away. Where the particular lifeboat station is in Scarborough, with the ramp that goes down into the sea, that, because it's very tidal where we are, sometimes that will go straight into the sea, won't it? If it's high tide, low tide, it needs to be pulled. And the amount of people who decide to sunbathe on the ramp is
it makes such a good barbecue place.
You'd think, you'd look and think, that's a lifeboat station, they might need to come out of that.
They might be coming down. No, I'll make myself space.
Oh, bless them, the great British public. Again, a couple more comments that link to that role. So Mary has asked, do you take specialist medical staff with you, or are you all trained in the first aid that you need to know? So that's a great question.
So we've got what we call casualty carers. So you have to do a week-long course to be qualified as a casualty carer. That means that you're qualified in like mass casualty triage, Entonox oxygen, and other aspects that you'd come across. So CPR is a massive one that we do, and anything to do with drowning. It's like a really enhanced first aid course that goes through all the kit that we have. We're really fortunate at our station to have people that work in medical roles as their full-time job. So they're always brilliant people to have, as well as being casualty carers. They've got that breadth of knowledge from whether it be paramedics, ICU nurses, HCAs, and they're brilliant to take with you on jobs that are going to be medical as well.
And the helm or the coxswain will address the situation of the shout and will pick crew. So if he knows that he's probably going to need a casualty care qualified crew member, they'll make sure that they're kind of taking someone suitable.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. And obviously you showed us earlier when you were showing us the life jackets, you've got your cards in there with kind of all the details about, which would help prompt. So we'll talk a little bit about the highs and lows of being members of crew. So what is the best thing, in your opinion, about being part of the RNLI? So if you start with Lucy, please.
It's hugely rewarding. You get to give back to the community that you enjoy yourself. Like, I absolutely love being in the sea, and it's fantastic to be able to know that you're helping somebody, and helping literally anybody that needs it, while also getting to do some pretty cool stuff. Like, otherwise I wouldn't be going out on ribs and Shannons. I would I wouldn't be doing that. But it's hugely rewarding. You are making a difference, and you are actively being part of a community, and it's great. It's great.
The people you meet through it as well. So like these people you're going out to sea with, you're literally, especially from like because we're fairly new to the crew, so we and it's the same with all of them, but we're trusting our lives in their hands pretty much,
and vice versa.
Yeah. So you do get that kind of special, I suppose, bond with people that you're in that situation with. Yeah, you just and there's so many different types of people that volunteer as well from every walks of life. Like these are people that you probably never say 2 words to normally,
that you
and you're all thrown
across
together. Yeah, soaking wet and cold in a boat. So it's a really unique situation.
It's a bonding experience.
Yeah.
Imagine. Yeah, and certainly when I've written my books, that's that aspect of being part of a family, part of a community is one of the things that I picked up quite strongly from Mouse and wanted to emulate. And that, as you've said, it's people, all sorts of ages, all sorts of backgrounds, jobs, coming together with one purpose of saving lives at sea, and just absolutely amazing thing that you do. So then flipping that over, what is the most challenging thing about doing this role? And if we start the other way around with Amy first.
I think maybe not quite, because I didn't come from any kind of maritime background. Obviously, you do get people that volunteer for the RNLI that are like fishermen or have like a maritime background. So learning everything from nothing has been very challenging. Just like basic navigation skills, some of the guys maybe have done these things for years. And then we're kind of learning them from scratch. So I found that quite difficult. There's a lot of work you have to put in kind of for your modules and stuff. So working that around work can be quite challenging. But you do know this when you sign up, like you do sign up for it. And the pager going off at 3 a.m, like that's always nice.
That's a lovely wake-up call. Yeah, I think it's like Amy said, when you've had no maritime background, we've both pretty well versed with the sea, but it's a complete different kettle of fish when you start getting boats involved. Like boat handling, I would never drive a rib. It's not something that I would do. And everything is brand new, and it almost feels a bit like you're being thrown in at the deep end. But everybody starts like that. If you've not come from that background, you're not going to know, and the only way you're going to know is by
learning,
time in, and putting the time in, absolutely. But I think whenever the pager goes off, you know what boat it is, but you never know what you're going to. I think that's another thing, and there's not really anything you can do to prepare for what you're going to, aside that you need to get there, and then you follow on what you would do when you get to the station. So liaise with the coxswain or helm depending on the shout, find out what it is, and if you're going, get kitted up. And you're thinking about those things, but you never know what you're going to.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. What advice would you give to anyone who's thinking of joining the RNLI, and particularly as a woman joining the RNLI?
I think if you find your local station and go down and have a chat with them.
Talk to them.
If Scarborough's your local station, we were more than happy to have a chat with you and show you around. I think now that COVID restrictions have eased off, the station should start to be opening up again. So they do like your experience days and things like that showing you around, and you get to see the boats, and occasionally crew will be around and you can talk to crew.
Just go and ask ask questions and make sure it's something that you want to do. I mean, if you want to do it, the RNLI have fantastic training facilities and opportunities. But just make sure it's definitely something that you want, and you realise that all the ins and outs of what's expected of you, I suppose.
And it from the woman's perspective, if you are thinking of joining up, don't let it deter you. Historically, definitely it's been a man's world, but times have changed massively. People have been so receptive to that, and we've seen that at our station massively. Everyone's so welcoming. There's no. It doesn't matter if you. Your gender is irrelevant. You're there to do a job, and people will help and support you regardless of that.
Yeah, it's brilliant to hear. And kind of linked to that, but somebody, Lindsay, has asked me, why did I choose the RNLI for your books? And And that really, what you were saying about being able to go and have experience days, that's where it started for me. Obviously, living by the coast, very much being aware of the RNLI always. And when I was brought up in a place called Gisborne in Teesside. And I used to do life-saving rather than swimming. So I learned to swim, but then I did life-saving classes. So did all my rope throwing, rescue skills, floating in pajamas and all of that sort of stuff. So I've always been a fan of the sea. I'm a scuba, well, I haven't done it for a lot of years, but I'm a qualified scuba diver as well. But I was a brown owl for about 7.5 years. And RNLI lifeboat stations tend to be very receptive to having groups like cubs, brownies, sea cadets, different things coming and looking around the station. And so on 2, maybe even 3 occasions, I brought my brownie pack down to have a tour round and have a look at the boat and have a look at the kit. And I just found it a fascinating world. And when I started writing, this world was in my mind. Given that I set my books by the sea, it made sense to acknowledge the key work that the RNLI does. And I try with some of my books, not to kind of have preachy lessons, but I try to convey some things. So one of the things I talk about is the danger of going down and wave dodging even, because you see with the increase of social media, all of these, I've got a great video of me wave dodging. Wasn't it hilarious that I was stood right by the coast and this enormous tidal wave came over my head? But actually that tidal wave could have swept you into the sea. And that could have been game over for you for the sake of what a social media 20-second video clip. And so I try to get across the risks of things like that. We've had some tragic scenarios in Scarborough, and one of those is presented fictionally in my first book, where an entire family got swept out to sea on what is now a ramp on North Bay that's closed off to the public. But an absolutely horrific thing that happened, and just a family who weren't from the coast, stopping off on the way back from somewhere else, taking pictures of the waves, and were swept into the sea. And I think so many people don't realise quite how dangerous the sea is, including sometimes those who live by the sea. So it's not always the tourists and those from inland who don't appreciate that. So there's just a few little messages that come across as some of the stories that I tell, that if I could get one person to think about some dangerous prank by the sea, then that's me playing a small part. So it's really important that I covered that as part of my book. And one of the things that I've been doing, although the RNLI, or Scarborough RNLI specifically, is my charity of the year. So I'd mentioned in the back of my first book that I would be presenting a cheque as part of my charity. I'm going down, I think, early May to do that, because I did come down the night that I met you, didn't I? But we couldn't buy a cheque. So, but one has been tracked down. So I'll be doing that. And again, just to say thank you on the back of some people having bought the book, to be able to give something back to say thank you for giving that time. But if you do run a club or anything like that, just get in touch with your lifeboat station, and they're always so welcoming and so friendly. And if you can instill that at a young age, that take heed of safety signs, take heed of the flags. Oh, another amazing thing that's run is I'm going to get the name wrong, the Safe Swim
Safe, yeah.
Yeah, that's really by the lifeguards, isn't it? And that my daughter has done that 2 years. She did it once at Scarborough, once at Bridlington, and it's absolutely amazing. I think it's up to the age of 14, might be, but do check out RNLI's website about that if any of you do have children, and it teaches you about what to do if you do find yourself in difficulties at sea, how trying to relax, lying back in a starfish position can actually save your life. And again, there was a TV news report just before the pandemic, I think, wasn't there was a young lad who got into difficulties in sea, and he laid on his back having watched Saving Lives at Sea on telly, and he knew what to do, and that actually saved him as he got sort of swept around the coast. So it really does make a massive difference. So we've talked about kind of advice on joining the RNLI, but not everybody would be interested in being crew. Obviously, there are other roles. There's volunteering roles, there's fundraising. So what would be your take on how the general public could support the RNLI?
You've got quite a few options. So like you said, there are voluntary roles in the shop, in the fundraising. Again, just pop down to the station and someone will be more than happy to to talk you through
like
it.
It was kind of said earlier with the word like crew. I think people always assume that's boat crew, but there are like tons and tons of shore crew that never get on a boat, and they are just as vital as the boat crew. So if you feel like, you want to help out, but you don't want to go and get wet at sea.
There are loads of volunteer roles that that are on land as well. If you don't fancy the wet and cold, we understand. There are loads of volunteer roles. It's a massive charity, and there are quite a lot. And I think on the websites they'll list some of those, and when vacancies come up, they'll be available. Even sharing social media posts, following the pages and liking things, even that generates more traffic and more awareness, and that in itself is supportive enough. There are donation points. There are quite a lot of seafront cafes and restaurants that have the donation pots for them as well, and it's
everything is run on donations. Like all the gear we use to keep us safe is very expensive, and it's all funded through donations and all the training and everything. So it's if you're doing fundraisers or anything, please consider the RNLI.
Absolutely, anything and everything is a massive help. 100%.
And we mentioned the shop then, and can I just say, if you've never checked out an RNLI shop, or online if you're not near one, there's some amazing gifts. I love the RNLI shop. We're fortunate enough to have one at Scarborough. We didn't used to before the new lifeboat station was built. I'm pretty certain there wasn't one. If it was maybe much smaller scale. There's one in Filey, there's one in Bridlington along the coast from us, and this is Finley. Lifeboat bear. Really gorgeous. So he comes from the shop and he's so cute in his kit.
That's lovely.
And
the same size as mine.
Sorry, what did you say, Lucy?
Same size boots as mine.
Tiny feet.
Love it. And spookily enough, one of the heroes in my second book, who is a crew member, is called Finley, and I had this, but I hadn't actually paid any attention as to what he was called. And then I looked at his little tag and went, "Oh, he's called the same." So it was meant to be. And there's loads of other lovely things. I've got a few kind of boat-related gifts. I'm just going to lean back a second. One of the mottos that I love, and it's actually the theme for my books, and it's written in both of them, is the quote from Sir William Pillory when he did a call to the nation to set up an institution that saved lives at sea. His call was in 1823, and the RNLI got set up, although it was called, and I can never quite remember this, it was called the National Institution for the Prevention of Life from Shipwreck. You can see why we changed it. And
now.
And his quote was, "With courage, nothing is impossible." And this is just a lovely little from the RNLI shop, a little gifty box, and I keep that on my shelf, and it's inspiring. It's a theme for the books, but I also think it's just such a theme for life. It's so amazing. So do check out the RNLI shop. So we're nearly at the end of time, so I'm just going to have a little scroll down, see if you've got any other comments. Oh, Lindsay says she has a lifeboat bear too. And again from Nikki, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much. Amanda says, really interesting stories and information from all three of you. Thank you. Lindsay also said, well said, Jessica, from when we were talking about respecting the sea, it's so important to always respect the sea. What made you want to volunteer, Grace asked? I think we covered that maybe right at the beginning when you were saying that you're interested in giving something back to the community that you were in. And we've also had a question just from Emma saying, sorry, she missed the first part. Are you on call 24 hours, 365 days a year? Emma, we talked, if you have a chance to listen back to that, we talked about there being a rota system at the beginning. And so crew can say when they're available and when they're not available. And so very much fit around that. Great question from Lindsay here. Just as how do you look after your emotional health after any tough shouts? So I can imagine sometimes there are difficult times. Are you able to answer that? Do you have any kind of thoughts on that?
So initially, usually the crew that you're on with, they're going to be your first port of call of who you're going to talk to. They were there, and they're going to be people that you can talk to. Like Amy said earlier on, you go to see and you trust the people that you're with your life, and vice versa. That they are people that you can talk to. And the RNLI offers a service called Trim, which is a trauma service where you can talk to professional counsellors about the shout or anything surrounding that, or any emotional health surrounding that. And that's on the professional side of it. That's something that they offer, which is free, which is fantastic. But I think from what we've heard from the crew, talking is one of the best things to do. Talk to the people that you're with, digest it, and never feel upset or worried about the emotions that you're feeling. Everything is going to be completely natural after something like that. You're
checked in on as well, aren't you? Like if you experience something like that, you have people checking in on you to various periods of time to make sure you handle everything on.
In the debrief, you'll always be asked, "Are you all right? Anything you want to talk about?" And if you don't appear okay, that they will be there for you.
Yeah.
And that, I think it's the cliche, but you are part of a family there, and you do get looked out for, and vice versa.
Yeah, because I can imagine particularly some of the first time when you don't find the person you've gone to rescue, or the first time when you're not able to get somebody in time. And again, we won't talk about any of those, because we say that's personal to those individuals. But I can imagine that you don't know how you're going to react to any of that until it happens. And sometimes you might want to talk immediately. Sometimes you might need to process it a little bit before you have that conversation. But it's great that I'm not surprised that that's all available, but it is great that
it's reassuring.
Definitely. Okay, I'm just having a quick scroll to see whether there are any more questions that we've missed, but I don't think we have. Oh, just one. Just been asked whether the lads play any pranks on you, or anything like that.
They play pranks. We play pranks back.
100%. We give as much as we take on that one. Yeah, no, I mean, just every now and again you might end up going for a little dunk when you're not expecting it, or if you're a little bit, not particularly tall, and your helmet gets pushed right to the back of the. But it's all right. I can climb.
There's a fair bit of banter.
But it's all lighthearted, and it's all okay.
I would imagine sort of that lightheartedness, that banter. Again, it's what you need to do for the you have, and all makes part of working as a team and pulling together. And as you said, putting your lives in each other's hands all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, that pretty much brings us to the end of our conversation. So a huge thank you to a few people who aren't on here today, and that's just say to Paul Huggins, who has one of my favourite surnames ever, and I'm going to actually have to use that in a book at some point. So thank you for helping to organise this. Really, really appreciate it, Paul, if you do watch this back, for all the help that you've done there. For Rudy, for being landed a little bit last minute on Tuesday with the Wi-Fi testing and videoing Amy at the station. Really appreciated that. And when I did come and visit a few weeks ago, I also spoke to Eve Lee, who is going to remind me of her job title.
DLA, so Deputy Launch Authority.
Lovely. So Eve gave me, again, really great perspective on her involvement, and Eve very much comes from a nautical background, has been a sailor all her life, and so brought that knowledge into the role there. So, and is, I'm sure she won't mind me saying, a fair bit older than Amy and Lucy, so it was interesting having that perspective from a mature crew member as well, and hearing about that. So thank you, Paul, Rudy and Eve, but the most enormous thank you, Amy and Lucy, for joining with us. Never done anything like this before. Tried not to have a rabbit in headlights moment when I first mentioned it when I came a few weeks ago. We're like, yeah, we can do that. But
far from Facebook Live pros.
No, I think you did absolutely brilliantly. Getting loads and lovely comments about, fascinating chat. I'm in awe of Amy and Lucy. We've got shout out to the Victor Danny Lovelock boat and the Clacton crew who rescued Lindsay there. So thank you so much. What you do, what the rest of the crew, whether out on the boat, whether on the shore, whether behind the scenes fundraising, it's just absolutely awesome what you do for a voluntary organisation. Can't thank you enough. So kind of round of applause from me. I'm sure watching. So thank you to everybody who has joined us and commented tonight. Really appreciate you being here. Hope we've answered all of your questions. And if you haven't already done so and you want to show more love for the RNLI and read about them, these two books have a lovely, I can't get in the wrong way, they don't fly that way. Lovely story involving the RNL, I can't speak anymore, the RNLI. So thank you for joining us tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Amy and Lucy, if you stay where you are for a moment, but everybody else, goodbye.